I wanted to give you a tutorial on how to create column graphs with averages and 2SEM. So we're going to use our roly-poly lab to help out with that. So let's get our roly-poly data. And we had, let's imagine we were in a group with 3 group members, so we had 3 roly-polies. And the data that we're going to analyze is what percent of the time were each roly-poly in the bright and the dark. Let's imagine roly-poly 1 was in the bright 70% of the time and in the dark 30%. Roly-poly number 2 was in the bright 60% of the time and the dark 40% of the time. Roly-poly 3 was in the bright, let's say 50-50. Okay, so we need to calculate a couple of things. We want to calculate the average for these percentages. We also want to calculate the 2SEM because that's what we're going to graph. In order to calculate the 2SEM, we are going to need to know the SEM, and we're going to need to know the standard deviation. Okay, so first up, average. The way that we calculate average on Excel or on Sheets, type equal because that starts a formula. Type in average, open parentheses, highlight all of the cells that we want to average. In this case, it's B2 through B4. Close parentheses and enter. Now we can slide this over so that it repeats our formula, or just for practice we can retype it. So equals average, open parentheses, highlight, so we're going to click and drag, click on C2, then keep holding and move your mouse to cover also C3 and C4. Then close parentheses, enter, and we've got our averages. All right, like I said, for 2SEM, we're going to have to do some other calculations first. First, we do standard deviation. So to find standard deviation, Excel can do that for us. Equals STD, and it gives us some options. We want standard deviation of the sample, so that's the .s. So click on standard deviation .s. On Sheets, I think it only gives one option. In this case, it's fine to just use that one option on Sheets. An advantage of using Excel for this is that we can use custom error bars. So I'll show you that in a little bit. All right, so the standard deviation, again, we're going to highlight those same 3 pieces of data. So cells B2 through B4, close parentheses, enter. And then over here equals standard deviation of our sample of C2 through C4, close parentheses, enter. All right, for this lab, because bright and dark always add up to 100%, however, whatever the deviation is on the bright side is also going to be the deviation on the dark side. Because what we're trying to figure out here is how, on average, how far away are these points from the average, right? So how far away is 70 from the average? How far away is 60 from the average? How far away is 50 from the average? And then we do the same on the dark. Those will be equally distant from the average because they all add up to 100. All right, so now let's figure out SEM. The formula for standard error of the mean is on your formula sheet, so you certainly don't have to memorize it. And you're not even going to be asked to do these calculations on the AP. I think this is just good practice, getting some Excel life skills. It's also, I think, helpful if you know how to do it. You might be in better shape of understanding kind of what it means. So SEM equals the standard deviation divided by the square root of the sample size. In this case, our sample size is 3 because we had 3 roly-polies. So we put in 3, close parentheses, and there we go. Do the same thing for dark. So we say equals the cell C8 where we have standard deviation divided by square root, open parentheses, 3 is what we're looking for because that's our sample size, close parentheses, there we go. 2SEM is just twice that, so equals 2 times, and times for Excel is Shift 8, the asterisk there, and then cell B7 is where we have our data. Make sure that when you're asking Excel to do a formula for you, you're clicking on where the data is, not where the label is. So that comes out to be 11.55 equals 2 times, and we're doing the same thing for dark, times 5.77, so we just click on cell C7, equals, and there we go. All right, so now we have our data, now we're going to graph this. So you want to highlight cells B and C1, so B1 and C1. So I just clicked down on B1 and dragged to also include C1. And then I'm going to hit Control and hold down Control while I select cells B5 and C5. When you have those 4 selected, you do Insert, and we're going to want a 2D column. So we select 2D column, and we are in good shape. I'm going to delete this title. You don't need a title on your graph because you're going to do a caption. The first sentence of your caption should be the title. So we're going to delete that, and then we're going to adjust some things. So over on the left, you could adjust the axis over here if you want. If you'd rather it go from 0 to 100, that's fine. You don't need to. We can add some error bars though, and we're also going to need some axis labels. So I'm going to add those here. So axis titles. So our title down here should be something that incorporates both of these variables. So bright and dark both fall under the category of light condition. And then over here, this is the percent roly-poly choosing condition. Okay? Or we could just put percent choosing condition or percent for each condition. Put something in there that tells you what that is all about. Okay, now we're going to do custom error bars. So click on one of the columns. So click on either bright or dark, and they should both sort of be selected. You can see little blue circles around the corners. That's how you know those data points or those columns were selected. And then hit the plus button where it says add a chart element. You can also do this under, let's see, up at the top where it says chart design is another place where you can do add chart element. But if you can find that big plus just to the side, that's maybe the easiest way to do it. So we're going to add chart element, and we want error bars. And the error bars we want are custom error bars. So you go to more options under error bars, click more options, and then down at the bottom we have custom, and we want to specify the value. So the positive error values that we want, we're going to delete what it has in there. And the error values that we want is the 2SEM. So we're going to highlight cells B6 and C6. And then we're going to do that for negative as well, because the error bars we want are 2SEM up and 2SEM down. So 2SEM above and below our average. And then we hit OK. And here we have our graph with custom error bars.